Britain's Prince Andrew is denying any involvement in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged sex trafficking ring. The royal family released a statement saying that the Duke of York is appalled by the scandal. Leaked video from 2010 appears to show Prince Andrew at Epstein's Manhattan mansion. Charlie D'Agata has the latest from Buckingham Palace.
Well, the fact that Buckingham Palace chose to release a statement at all just shows you how seriously they're now taking this situation, and here's why. It was in response to this video allegedly showing Prince Andrew waving goodbye to a young woman at Epstein's Manhattan mansion, purportedly shot in 2010 and taken less than an hour after Epstein left the house with another young woman. The prince even appears to check that no one was looking, but cameras were, which has forced Buckingham Palace to state His Royal Highness deplores the exploitation of any human being and the suggestion he would condone, participate in, or encourage any such behavior is abhorrent. Abhorrent. But the accusations go back to at least 2001, in this picture showing Prince Andrew with alleged victim Virginia Giuffre, who was only 15 at the time, and British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell. She says Maxwell acted as a madam, passing her around to Epstein's friends.
It started with one, and then it trickled into two, and then so on and so forth. And, you know, before you know it, I'm being lent out to politicians and to academics and to people royalty.
Unsealed court documents allege Giuffre was trafficked to Prince Andrew, a claim that was previously dismissed by a judge and struck from the record. Royal correspondent Roy Anika says the palace finally had no choice but to react.
Ever since Jeffrey Epstein died, there's been mounting speculation about what further evidence could come out about the Duke of York. Now, the only issue is with this statement, the palace have to be pretty confident that no further evidence is going to come forward, further implicating the Duke of York and his connection with Jeffrey Epstein.
Now, it's worth noting, this is in 2010. This is 2 years after Epstein was found guilty of sex crimes. Critics say Prince Andrew should have cut off that relationship there and then. Anne-Marie?
Charlie, thank you very much. So for more on this, we want to bring in attorney Deborah Blum. So Deborah, we talked last week about this law that changed here in New York that allows victims of sexual abuse to file civil lawsuits regardless of the statute of limitations. I think they have a year to file. So now we've got new lawsuits against Jeffrey Epstein, possibly also co-conspirators. Is the prince vulnerable?
He's not going to be vulnerable in this civil setting. First of all, he has sovereign immunity. He's not in the United States. Serving a subpoena or having legal process on a foreign national is pretty much impossible if he's a prince. It's difficult to begin with if it's just a regular everyday person, but he's a prince. And then there are specific protocols in place that would have to be followed through the Hague Convention, which would apply to pretty much anyone. But here you have sovereign immunity where they're going to say that he's absolutely not going to participate. If this were a criminal action with charges against him, that would make it a little different, but I also don't think, due to the nature of the charges, it's not like this is murder, that anyone would waive his immunity. Okay, very interesting. So meanwhile, the investigation continues. Where is it going from here? I know that certainly there have been, like I mentioned, lawsuits filed against some of Jeffrey Epstein's businesses and so on and so forth. So what are investigators looking into? Well, they're using the conspiracy element of Epstein charges to continue their investigation. They are continuing to search his properties to see what evidence they can uncover. And what we need to focus on is the fact just that people had sex with minors, that's not a federal crime. So that's not going to make them liable in federal court. They'd actually have to have knowledge of this sex trafficking ring and participate in it to get charged federally.
So that's why accomplices could be a very interesting focus, like this Ghislaine Maxwell.
Right. You know, this case has so many layers. A federal judge said that the non-prosecution plea deal that Epstein entered into is not legal. It didn't take away from his actual prison sentence or take his plea sentence away, but it gave opportunity to the U.S. government to pursue the Florida overt act charges in the indictment as well as New York charges. because the non-prosecution plea deal, according to the federal judge, should be thrown out and shouldn't apply. So we have great liberty in this case to really go after the other individuals involved, but again, they need to have participated in some way in trafficking these young women.
So last week we heard some details about the medical examiner's report that there had been some broken bones in his neck. Now we actually have a cause of death, and it's suicide. But Jeffrey Epstein's attorneys, they're not buying that, and they want their own investigation. What are they looking for? Well,
I actually have spoken with some of the attorneys that were seeing Jeffrey Epstein, and everybody said that he was in great spirits, even up until the morning before he killed himself, allegedly killed himself. So I think that they are just not believing that he actually committed suicide. As a criminal defense attorney, you become familiar with mental health problems and issues and people that may be suicidal, and I just don't think that they were sold that he was suicidal. And he was in a cell that really had medieval conditions, and he might not have physically been able to do this based upon what was available to him. And there really might not have been enough room in the cell for him to hang himself, or the conditions might not have led to that being a possibility. So what's interesting is inmates have very few rights, but they do have the right to privacy in their cell. Outside of that, we don't know how much camera footage they're actually going to be able to get because some of the cameras weren't working.
Of course.
So I'm not sure that we're ever really going to get the right answer here.
Yeah, probably not. What's the benefit of sort of pursuing the cause of death as an investigation? I mean, he's not there anymore. He's not alive anymore. There are, alleged victims that are suing his estate, suing associates. But does it even matter whether or not he committed suicide at this point?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I think that it shouldn't have taken his death for our country to examine the poor conditions inmates face in our jails.
Yeah.
It's interesting because in a civil suit, somebody can be deceased and you could still go after their estate. So they don't actually have the ability to truly defend themselves because they can't question their attacker. Whereas in a criminal action, once somebody passes away, there's no longer a criminal action. So everybody is going to come in civilly to try to at least have economic benefit. And what happened to these young women, nobody can excuse that. It's just really a question of how far they're going to be able to get civilly due to the distance in time. This new law, as you just said, opens up the floodgates for people to bring cases, whereas the statute of limitation previously barred those actions for a reason.
Yeah, right. Deborah Blum, thank you very much.
Thank you.